But anyway, so do we want to just jump right into my I figured since we were already using my screen, we can just jump right into the true crime segment that I've been working on.
Okay, so RJ, gut check. Which is it? Murder or unfortunate witness? Knowing no other information than this photo and the name. Murderer, 100%.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with murderer.
It's just more fun that way. All right.
Interesting.
Now we'll
All
be
right.
proven right or wrong. Isn't that right, George? Take it away.
Indeed. So the overview of the case. We're in the summer. It's the summer of 1892. We're in Fall River, Massachusetts. Andrew. Oh, I put Border, but it's Borden.
Same thing.
Yeah. Andrew Border and his second wife,
Abby, were both hacked to death in their homes. They were found in separate rooms on different floors, and the only item of note was a hatchet head in the basement with no blood or handle. Here are the crime scene photos. On the left, you have Mrs. Abby Borden, the stepmother of the family, and you have the head of the house. I picked a blurred picture. I mean, these are so low quality, I figured TOS probably wouldn't hit us, but the blurred one seemed appropriate for Twitch. But yeah, so one of them was murdered in like a sitting room on the couch. The other was found in the guest room. Now, the cast.
Wait, sorry, can you go back?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you're going to go into more detail on this, but that doesn't really look like hacked to death. When I heard hacked, I pictured like pieces.
Well, she just hacked their heads, but she hit.
That'll do it then.
Or well, I won't say she. Sorry, I'm painting a picture that I didn't mean to paint. But the assailant hit Abby either 18 or 19 times in the head, depending on the source, and the Andrew he hit 10 to 11 times in the head.
Okay. No, that's hacked then. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No worries. Questions are encouraged. So, who was staying at the Bordens at the time of the murder? We have Andrew Borden, the head of the household, the breadwinner, a relatively wealthy man for his time. He'd be worth about $4 to $7 million.
$10 today.
No, $4 to $7 million-ish today. So he didn't do bad for himself. He was like a banker and a landlord investor type dude.
He was mediocre.
Sucked.
He was a measly millionaire.
Yeah, he's not a big business daddy, and that's probably why he was murdered.
That's probably why I got hacked up.
Yeah. And then Abby Borden, his second wife and the stepmother of the daughters. You have I'm thinking of the Evans Gambit again. Emma Borden, the first daughter of Andrew, and she was out of town at the time, so she's not really a suspect. She was at her friend's getting fitted for some dresses. Bridget Maggie Sullivan was the live-in maid, and the only other person at the house at the time of the murder. John Morse, Andrew's brother-in-law, and then prime suspect Lizzie Borden.
Upon viewing of more photographs, I have changed my mind. I now believe it was John Morse who did the deed.
Interesting.
He looks like a villain.
I'll go into that at the end, but there is a famous sort of he's sort of the famous second suspect that some people point to. Here's the layout of the Borden home with the bodies and a picture of the outside house. It's actually now a bed and breakfast, and you can stay in the home and soak up the atmosphere. Actually, in one of the videos I watched, the BuzzFeed Unsolved, they actually stayed in the Lizzie Borden home.
Why though?
Why?
It's just an old ass. It's just an old ass
murder, dude.
It's an old ass house where people died. Why is this a tourist destination? I don't understand people.
Because ghost hunters mostly. They got to take their spirit boxes in there. They got to take their Ouija boards, and they got to try and commune with Abby and her late husband.
Surprisingly smallish house for a millionaire.
Yes, well, this is an important point of the case. Andrew was incredibly frugal despite his wealth. He was a known penny pincher, and we'll get into a little more detail on that later on.
Ah.
And here is the attic and the basement. This is where Bridget was during the murder, but we'll get into the timeline.
What a wild way to depict stairs.
Indeed.
Can I?
Okay. I guess I'll go back.
No.
We
Let's go
have-
back.
Yeah.
Are they like?
I think it's because they
are
go
they
up
are
in
they
both
supposed to be
directions?
turning stairs, but like they don't?
I don't know. I thought they'd sort of go up like this. I'm waiting for my hands to come up on Twitch. I'm doing a hand motion. I don't know when it will show up. Because
Okay.
oh, there it is. I shouldn't watch myself while I'm doing this. But it's fun. Okay, so into the timeline. 7 a.m. Andrew, John, and Abby have breakfast in the kitchen. Then at 8:45 a.m., John leaves the house to visit other relatives. This alibi was cleared by police, but some suspicion has been raised about this alibi because in some accounts of his alibi, he talks about being with the town doctor, but the town doctor was the one examining the bodies. So, but then some accounts of his alibi just have him on a tram with like 6 priests, and then the tram driver remembered the priest but didn't remember John.
That seems like a wild like what a wild claim. I wasn't there at the murders. I was with a lot of priests. Like
Well-
a surprising number of priests.
Well, I think that's what kind of
I'm a
cleared
very
him.
holy man.
Well, no, he was just on a tram to go visit other relatives, but he said that he saw 6 priests on the tram, and the tram driver remembered 6 priests, so it was like, how would he know there were 6 priests on the tram if he wasn't on the tram?
So here's what I'm thinking.
That's some like thoughtful deduction that I feel like that's an interesting. I like that.
But also, think about it.
Mhm.
If someone says you committed a murder, you're like, no, I was with some people. And like, oh, who are you with? Some very chill, non-violent, spiritual people. You mean priests? Yeah, priests. Like 6 of them.
Yeah.
Sounds
Yeah.
like the kind of thing you just kind of make up.
Yeah, but he would have had to have gotten extremely lucky for there to have been
Mhm.
six priests that a tram driver remembered still.
Maybe you
The
pay
other
the tram driver.
possibility is he somehow knew
That
of
could be true. He could have
their
bribed them.
their travel ahead of time.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Like
also
he was
true.
acquainted with these priests, and they were like, "Yeah,
He was
we're
really
gonna go on
chill
a
with priests.
yeah, we're gonna go on a priest trip to Priestland."
Yeah. Okay,
I
so
love
moving on.
Priestland. Sorry.
Andrew leaves the house to attend to his business. And Abby goes into the guest bedroom that John has been staying in to do some tidying, to do some cleaning. And at the same time, Maggie is sent outside to do some window cleaning. At 10:45, Andrew comes home and lays down in the sitting room for a nap, where his body is found. Maggie does the same in her attic bedroom, so 2 floors up from where Andrew is, 1 floor up from where Abby's body is found. Then at 10:50, we have to rely on Lizzie's statements to the police, but Lizzie goes outside to look for lead weights for a fishing trip about 5 minutes after Andrew comes home. At 11:15, Lizzie from outside hears a thud and a groan. She comes inside to find her father dead and calls for Maggie. Police and the doctor arrive and I got conflicting accounts on this, whether it was the police and the doctor finding the body or if it was Maggie, the maid, with a neighbor. But either way, Abby is found dead in the guest bedroom, and they discover her blood is already dried and coagulated. So they come to the conclusion that she was likely killed at least an hour before Andrew, closer to an hour and a half by their estimation. But again, this is in the infancy of forensic anything. So that's just an estimate at best. But there was clearly some amount of time between the murders, because Andrew was still dripping when the police got there.
So he was fancy. He's dripping.
Indeed. Dripping with blood.
Actually, that wasn't funny.
Dude. Yo, this fucking murder victim, this guy
Look
He's
at
got
his
so much
sick
drip.
duds,
Dripping.
though.
He got the drip.
Gold chains and
Oh man.
no neck to put it on.
Oh yeah. All right. So immediately, Lizzie's the
You think
prime
anyone would
suspect.
mind if I took his clothes?
Um, she was notably composed after finding such a horrible crime scene. She was known to not get on with her stepmother and was upset with her father's frugal ways, despite being wealthy. At the inquest after the murders, she was inconsistent with her stories and gave inconsistent statements. The apparent time between the murders all but ruled out an intruder, and a pharmacist said she tried to buy poison from him days before the murder, and she was seen burning a dress the Sunday after the murders, and the same witness who saw that claimed that Lizzie had predicted something bad would happen shortly before the murders. And then, 4 months after the crime, Lizzie Borden is arrested. Now, the prosecution still has an uphill battle. One thing I meant to put before this, her dress was completely void of any blood or anything, which was the biggest hurdle for the prosecution. And on top of that, all the evidence was circumstantial. The inquest was ruled inadmissible due to being given without Borden's lawyer present. It comes out at the trial that Lizzie Borden was prescribed morphine shortly after the murders, which could account for her inconsistent stories and stuff. She was taking a strong opiate.
Uh-huh.
It's not exactly like she'd be consistent. Emma testified that she told Lizzie to burn the old dress because it had paint on it, and the pharmacist's claim was also ruled inadmissible. So it was a real uphill battle for the prosecution.
Who was Emma?
Emma was the older sister.
Okay.
And she was out at the time of the murders, but she was due to come back like the next day or so. And Lizzie Borden was acquitted in one of the trials of the century. And this actually led to a creepy nursery rhyme where I'm trying to. Lizzie Borden grabbed an axe, gave her mother 40 whacks. When she'd seen what she had done, she gave her father 50 or 41. You better hope she doesn't find you, or else she'll give you 42. I think is the full creepy nursery rhyme. So Lizzie lives the good life post-trial. She and Emma moved to a more expensive neighborhood and home. It's important to note that if Andrew had been ruled to have died second, his estate would have been inherited by Abby, and then Abby's children would have greatly split up Emma and Lizzie's inheritance. So it was important for them that Abby died first, and Andrew would be a widower. That way, all of Andrew's stuff would go down to his children, and none of it would go to Abby's children.
Okay.
Andrew,
Okay. I think you miswrote this.
I did.
Yeah, because you said if Andrew had died second, then it would go to
Yeah, it
Abby's
isn't.
children.
Yeah.
But then you said like.
Oh yeah, I did write it wrong. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, if Andrew had died first, not second. Sorry.
Yeah.
And sorry, I wrote it backwards. My bad. Thank you for catching that. Yeah. So that's backwards. My bad. I did write this quickly today, but Andrew would have been worth around 4 to 7 million today, which is I said that earlier, but Emma and Lizzie are unemployed and completely depend on their father's money. And Andrew had even began signing over some properties to Abby. I said over twice too. Wow, terrible slide. Moving on. Things that make Lizzie look innocent. She had no blood on her dress, and dresses at the time were not simple to take on and off. So she maybe could have gotten away with it when Andrew was at work, which is when, if she's the murderer, that's when she would have killed Abby. So she could have maybe changed and cleaned up after that one, but the police came 15 minutes after they found Lizzie called out and found the other body. So very small time frame for her to have cleaned up. But and then she was a woman. This is more like evidence of the time. She was a small woman, and some said she couldn't have committed the gruesome murder. I think nowadays we know that with adrenaline and strong emotions, a small, skinny woman, or even adolescent or something can pull off, hatching someone to death. I mean, it's not It's not that hard. No
Mhm.
history or rage.
It's
or violent
actually pretty
behavior.
easy. I've done it a few times.
Yeah, and then lack of physical evidence connecting to the crime. But just on the blood thing, the theory for that I've seen brought up is we go back here, um, and you look at the coat that's underneath his head, the theory for the crime sort of thing, or the theory for how she would have done the crime without getting any blood on her is basically maybe she put the overcoat on backwards to hatchet him to death, and then folded the coat under his head, and then she would have only had to wash her face and hands. And then she could have done the same for Abby, or like I said, she had time to clean up, so she could have changed, which would have explained burning the other dress. And then you just have to assume that Emma was covering for her.
Uh-huh.
The other thing is Maggie being in the house this whole time has also led some people to suspect that she was in on the crime. There's also a rumor that she was carrying a parcel away from the estate days after the murder, and no one searched her. So maybe that parcel had the murder weapon. Maybe it had some things that got blood on them. We don't know. And that's basically it. So I guess time to discuss.
Okay, I want to hear about. I want to hear about the.
Oh,
I want to hear about the dude man did it.
yeah.
Andrew's
So
brother.
the George the not George the John Morse stuff is pretty circumstantial as well. It was there was some math teacher who came out with a book that was basically like accusing him of being the real killer. And he said he was the one who said in that book he was the one who claimed that the alibi included talking to the town doctor who was which doesn't make any sense because he was the town doctor um that was viewing the bodies at the time of his alibi, or at least part of his alibi. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the one suspicious thing. He was also a butcher by trade, so his theory was that he used a cleaver to um hack him to death. That's
Do the
why
deed.
that's why there was no blood on the hatchet head, and they never found a different weapon, because if he did the murders then ran away, he would have taken his cleaver or whatever. And he had lots of reasons for there to be blood on a cleaver, so he could have easily just washed it off or whatever. And then he also knew about a potential will, even though it's my understanding that there wasn't a will. So I was kind of mixed up on that. But apparently, in her testimony, Lizzie Borden said that she hadn't heard about a will, but she maybe offhand heard about it years ago from John Morse, and that was basically the big things. But I don't think it's my personal opinion that it was Lizzie Borden. I don't think John Morse did it.
So they never determined a murder weapon.
Not
They
100%.
never found it. Okay.
No, they did match the hatchet head to the skulls, but I mean that's basically just placing them in the skull, and I don't think that's very scientific. They also sent a hair found on the axe and the axe head to Harvard, and they soaked it for blood remnants, which there was none in the wood that was left from the handle, and the hair was bovine. So yeah, they don't really know if that even was the murder weapon, or if the murder weapon could have been in the shawl, or it could have been John Morris's cleaver.
So I think it was. They're not.
Or it could have been like an identical axe that like the head was supposed to be like the replacement for or something.
Yeah.
Like
So
the
what
one
is-
they found.
Sorry. So some other things that are coming up as questions are: why do they think he died at all? Was it this inheritance scheme? Is that the commonly accepted reason why he died?
Yeah, that's the motive, and I think it's a pretty strong motive because, like, if like he doesn't have a will, so if he, at least that's the thought of the children is he doesn't have a will. So if that's the case, when he dies, it all goes to his widow. And then when she died, the lion's share would go to her kids. and they're unemployed. They rely completely on their dad's money. So like, it's kind of like their future's in jeopardy in a way. From their perspective.
Yeah, that tracks.
Mm. And I just don't see much of a motive for Morse. Like, even if he knew about a will, like as a brother-in-law, he probably wouldn't have been getting that much. And John's old anyway, or not John. Andrew's old anyway. He's probably, he's not gonna, even without murder, he's not gonna be kicking around for too much longer. It's 1892, and he's like 69. So yeah,
Nice.
And there's no chance it was someone completely unrelated due to the nature of the murder timings.
Yeah, there's two main things that kind of take away from that. Nothing was stolen or reported missing, and the fact that he would have had to murder Abby first, which wouldn't have even been his target.
And then
if
wait.
it's just and then wait in the house for like at least half an hour, probably closer to an hour or more.
So, yeah. So is there a chance that it was Lizzie and Emma were both in on it? Emma was kind of helping her out.
Yeah, Emma helped her out in the trial by saying she's the one who told her to burn the dress. And then Maggie, it just seemed like if there's she was in or cleaning the windows of the house the entire time. So it just seems incredibly unlikely that she didn't see or hear anything. And if she's not implicating, Lizzie, it just feels like then she was in on it. Also, interesting to note, Maggie, soon after the trial, moves away to Canada and never comes back. So
kind of sounds like nobody liked Andrew or his wife. And then they're just like, well, we hate you, Dad, and new mom.
Yeah.
Give me your money. Kinda.
Yeah.
At least that's what I think.
Yeah, that was my conclusion as well. That like, I think what happened is Maggie and Maggie and Lizzie conspired together to kill her, and then Emma might have found out after the fact, or maybe didn't even find out, just helped her just because like she thought she was innocent or whatever, and then it's just like, oh, I'll just cover for the dress or whatever. But either way, I think they were all three in on it.
So if that was, what was their argument of who did do it if it wasn't them?
Well, that's the thing. The defense never even made an argument for that. All they had to do was poke holes in the prosecution's case, and that's all they really did. So there was never even really an alternate theory.
Well, yeah, then it was probably that when you've eliminated, what's the phrase? When you've eliminated the impossible, then whatever remains, no matter how improbable, must be true.
What happened? Yeah.
If it's incredibly unlikely, it's not impossible. It's incredibly unlikely that someone else, a third party, came in, murdered somebody upstairs, waited around, came down, did the exact same thing, and then dipped, and none of the two people outside saw.
Yeah.
And
another thing, which I don't know why. This is the only thing that pokes the hole in Maggie even being involved. I don't know why she would testify this, but she testified that when Andrew was coming home, usually there's 3 locks on the front door, and usually Lizzie only locked one so that Andrew could let himself back in, but she locked all 3 so that Maggie ended up having to help her in. And and Maggie testified that she heard her on the stairs laughing as she was trying to fiddle with the lock and let Andrew in, which is doesn't look good for Lizzie for sure.
Now I think they're sociopaths who just didn't want to have to get real jobs.
Yeah. Seems like it.
Or maybe it wasn't even that. Maybe they just really didn't like Andrew.
Yeah, or Abby.
Maybe he smelled.
Yeah.
Truly the worst crime.
Mm.
To not have deodorant in 1892 or whatever this was.
It was also reported that it had gotten so bad.
His smell,
in the Borden household that Abby Lizzie stopped calling Abby mom and instead called her Mrs. Borden.
Yeah, I think they just hated each other. It sounds like.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, she probably
I
did
guess
it.
we're ready to call it. Lizzie Borden was a murderer, and we're coming for you, Lizzie.
And my gut check was correct. Thank you, creepy picture.
I know it's a hot take.
Oh, we might as well bring back hot takes for this. Ooh wee.
This is a lot of fun. So this is like
Yeah.
why did this gain so much?
There isn't like another potential like basically like all signs point to Lizzie,
Mhm.
except like there's some things that are like, well, I don't know, but
Yeah.
like nothing points to anyone else.
Yeah, the only weird thing was the fact that she had no blood on her, and I think the shout
That's
out
because
to,
it was an inside job. I think they all helped each other.
Yeah, that too. But shout out to the Smith. I'm gonna link every source I used in the YouTube video. But shout out to the Smithsonian channel. There's like a show called The Curious Life and Death of, and that show was the show that I got that theory about the wearing the coat backwards in order to block most of the blood, and then just putting it under his head. So I think that was a really good theory to answer for why she didn't have blood on her. So shout out to that show. But yeah, that's basically all I had.
That was very interesting. So why is this? How did this become as well known or like as famous as it did? Is it because it's just well documented for the time, or
it was kind of like a trial of the century at the time? Like
it just became sensational.
Like it was so sensational because this sort of Protestant white small petite woman being arrested for these two gruesome murders. It was just like a huge trial at the time. Tons of people showed up, and
yeah, but the dude is also old as hell. I think she was certainly capable.
Yeah, I think it's just a lot of the misogyny of the time. Really, is what made it sensationalized.
Mm-hmm. She
like,
couldn't
how
have done
small
that.
are we talking?
What
were her measurements?
Fuck! Oh, I did know this.
Or her specs, her stats.
I think she was like, I don't want to misspeak. I'm gonna try googling.
What's her dex, strength, and wisdom?
6'4", 220 pounds.
I want to say she was around 120, 130 pounds.
Linebacker for Notre Dame.
Let's see if it's as simple as Lizzie Borden weight.
You know what the funniest thing is? True crime freaks are so into this stuff that probably is a fact you can find out.
Yeah.
And yes, I called them freaks.
5'4" and 135 pounds. So
that's not like that's a smallish woman, but not like a tiny woman.
Yeah.
That's a woman who could probably take out a sleeping 69-year-old man.
Yeah. And a bent
with
over,
a weapon.
And a bent over 64-year-old woman.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, we're ready to convict Lizzie.
An axe does so much of the work for you.
Where's the gavel?
If she really did use an axe.
Yeah.
Guilty of murder and hiding it? I don't know the proper term. Lying under oath, maybe?
Perjury?
Yeah, that.
Tampering with evidence?
Oh, that's a big one, yeah.
Something about interfering a police investigation or whatever?
Yeah.
He's going away for a
mainly
long
that murder
time.
one.
I was gonna say, can you catch someone on covering up their own evidence trail on those things?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I mean,
I'm fairly confident you can.
It makes sense, but like also it like I've never ever like
hear of it,
heard it used in that like kind of context. Like I've never heard of anyone get charged with murder and also covering up the murder that they did.
Yeah.
It's like a footnote, probably.
Yeah, it's like most people are concerned with like, convicted on the murder charge. Yeah.
The murder part.
Yeah. It would have been funny if someone like, there's not enough evidence to convict you of murder, but you definitely covered this shit up.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I feel like that's definitely happened. Right?
Yeah, it's like they tampered with it
Must
enough
have.
to where they could no longer prove it was them or something like that, but
Yeah, but
they
they
still
clearly were the
janked it
ones
up
that
on
tampered.
purpose
Yeah,
to obscure that fact.
and a lot of times if they can't get you on murder, then they just like they just push it down to like
They
second
just fucking
degree,
shoot you.
like second degree murder, third degree murder, manslaughter, whatever,
Yeah.
reckless
So-
endangerment or whatever. I don't
Reckless endangerment with a cleaver.
know. Yeah, you endangered this person's life when you swung an axe at their head, you monster.
And then you did it 11 more times. That might bump it up to man. Yeah.
Yeah, that's manslaughter. I mean,
That's
you
manslaughter.
couldn't know that they were gonna die, but
I didn't know there was a
mean,
man
come
under this
on.
code.
Oh.